On this week's show, discussing prioritizing the work with Felipe Engineer-Manriquez from the Bolt Company. In this week's news, call for entries, industry reports, a new robot, and more. All right. Well, we are back on the show, and I've got my man Nathan with me. Nathan Wood, how you doing today?
Oh man, I am so excited to dig into some Lean, some IPD, some Scrum. It's all my favorite buzzwords. I mean, I feel like I'm gonna be outed because all the quotes I keep getting credit for, I'm gonna have to give credit to all the actual Lean scholars, including Felipe here. So excited to dig in.
Well, I think you actually owe Felipe an apology because you put it out there so hard in the universe that you wanted to sit down and interview him, that he had flight issues when we were originally set to schedule this. And it was on your birthday. So this way, your birthday wish was answered. So Felipe, how does it feel to be Nathan's birthday wish, but also the kind of recipient of a little juju from him there?
Oh, it feels so good. It only feels like he's paying it forward. Like he was a guest on the EBFC show, and we had all these plans, Jeff, about going super deep into Scrum. We were talking before we went live and recording that we've got to make up for all that lack of Scrum talk so we can make this just scrumptious for everybody. And I'm so happy to be Nathan's birthday wish.
It was fake because when I saw that I couldn't be on my birthday because I was skiing all day, I sent the screenshot to Jeff that I hit 21,000 vertical feet on Saturday, which is a new personal record for me. And I don't even know what that really means, but it was more than I've done before. And I'm now obsessed with gamification of skiing, which is kind of the next frontier. Which, ironically, Jeff, you started, right? I mean, that was before you even got into construction. Was building the infrastructure to do that. It's crazy the intersection of like productivity and measurement and construction that all brings us together here. This is fun.
Yeah, I mean, my history of gamification comes from building that actually the predecessor to what is that app that you use today, because, well, we could get into another story around that one, but I think we're going to have a scrumptious episode, and I think I'm going to get us rolling in this episode because we're going to do a couple of innovative things. So as we always do before we get into our show, we're going to talk about the cause of show, which is prevent construction suicide. And I have been reading things that have been given to us from industry, but it just so happens to turn out that Felipe is actually trained and has some of his own experience. So Felipe, talk to me a little bit about those listening in and that are looking for resources or looking to be a resource, looking to move forward. How can they be a good resource to promote mental health and really to be there in suicide prevention?
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. This is a topic near and dear to my heart. This is a personal one for me that I've got too many people that this has affected. You can't even hit multiple projects today and not come across at least one person that has been affected by a suicide, either in their family or directly on the construction site. The statistics are startling, and I know if you've got the stats since 2018, 2019, according to CDC research, construction, and when you take in the broader construction industry to include heavy mining as well, you have a 50 per 100,000, 50 per capita rate of suicide, or 5 times higher rate. It's the number one cause of fatalities in the industry. It's suicide, not construction accidents, not struck by, not anything else. It's actually people are taking their own life and choosing not to be in the game, just piggybacking on what you're talking about, the game of life. And that statistic is unacceptable. The situation we have in the industry is so bad that you're 5 times more likely to die by your own hand than to be in an accident that was outside of your control. It's just not good. So luckily, there are resources, like you said. We now have the Suicide Prevention Hotline simplified their number so that everyone can access free mental health resources here in the United States. If you need to call, you guys know the number now.
That's right. It's 988 for mobile phones.
988 for mobile phones. That's right. It's that easy now. It's just a phone call away. But if you're on a site, like Jeff said, and you want to be able to take a positive action, let me break down how easy it is now. If you feel comfortable, and I always have to do the disclaimer, it's if you feel comfortable, you only need to make a space so that you can listen to somebody tell you about their day, their issue, or their problem. You do not have to solve their problem. All you have to do is listen. And if you suspect or your intuition's guiding you that this person needs a little more than a shoulder to listen to or lean to, then you can ask them, would you feel comfortable if we called this number together? And if you feel like they're at risk, you just have to dial the phone, 988, put the phone in their hand, and people are ready to talk that are trained to intervene in a positive way. You can absolutely make a difference in somebody's life. For the vast majority of people, Jeff, just being that sounding board to have someone listen to you is enough to help them cope and combat the complexity of what suicide is. Because it is a very complex issue with lots of different factors. So again, people, if you're listening, don't feel like you now have some extra burden on your shoulders. If you need help and want help, make the call. And if you have the ability to intervene on somebody in a positive way, just make space to listen. It's all you have to do. It's that simple. That's the positive intervention that we need. You can make a difference and save a life. And at the Bolt Company, we've got special training that we call Gatekeeper Program. And in that program, we get trained from a psychologist, and we have a full-time coach, which is Renee Wolf in our company. We have quarterly meetings. We have resources so that we can listen, act, and then take additional action if necessary to make a difference in saving someone's life.
That's awesome. And if you don't have those resources provided by your company, you can get those resources for free from preventconstructionsuicide.com as well, so that everyone has access to those resources. And I appreciate you, Felipe, being the first one to do that intro and really focus on the cause of the show. It really shows why we wanted to have you here for the rest of the show, because it's far more than about what we do every day. It's about the industry that we support. We'll be back for the interview in a second, but before we do, remember, guys, follow us on YouTube. We're back. So that's youtube.com/@the ConTech Crew. Check it out. I'm here with Robert Shear, VP of Strategy and Business Development for OpenSpace. Robert, tell us a little bit about what is OpenSpace.
OpenSpace is a 360 job site capture, review, and tracking tool. Think of it as an up-to-the-minute Google Street View of your project that people can view anywhere, anytime. Some people also refer to it as like total project recall, right? So what if you could have a photographic memory for all your projects for all time in case something came up in the future? So that's really what it is. How do you use it? Let me grab my camera. You simply just attach a 360 camera to your hard hat, open our app on your phone, open the floor plan, tap where you are and walk. We take care of the rest. So as you walk, we take 2 360 images per second. You come back, upload them to the cloud, and we process that all together, stitch them together, pin all those images to your plans, and deliver it back to you as a navigable 360 environment for everyone to use and share. And typically we deliver it back to you in like 30 to 60 minutes.
And we are back for our interview with Felipe Engineer-Manriquez, Director, Project Delivery Services at the Bolt Company, author of the Construction Scrum, and host and founder of the EBFC podcast, which stands for Easier, Better, Faster, and Cheaper. So, fellow podcaster, someone I followed in the industry for a long time. Man, thanks for joining us on the show.
Yeah, Jeff, Nathan, thank you for having me on the show. It is my honor to be on a show with such equal audiophiles as yourselves. Just love that.
For those of you who aren't watching this and who are listening in the car, these smooth sounds, these smooth voices are brought to you by fantastic audio nerd setups. And if you don't have one, you're now feeling it, right? There was a little bit of pre-show. Go through some of those voices, a little pre-show voice, and let's see if you can figure out which one he's using.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this podcast is brought to you by Jeff Sample for all your audio needs. That's part of my commercial podcasting voice that I use, and I was going to do one for Nathan, but I don't know if the show's rated for kids or not, so I didn't want to play off of his last name and cross over into the dark side of the jokes that you can't tell.
Yeah.
Unless it's not rated for kids or rated for kids.
No, we are a family-based show. This one gets played a lot on family drives, as we have heard. So we'll keep it above board there. I want to hear.
We'll invite you to Construction Dorks. We'll invite you to a Construction Dorks. You can talk about it on there.
Yeah, because on the EBFC show, it's rated not for kids. So we've had guests like lose it and do a lot of cursing. We still know it's a mixed audience, so we'll have it edited and beeped out in post-production. But yeah, it's really good to be listening to people that know what good sound sounds like.
Well, we've nerded out on the sound. Now it's time to nerd out on the history that is you and what kind of brings you into the industry. I mean, you have an extensive background in the business, worked for a couple of different major contractors, an electrical engineering degree, an MBA. Like, what's the story of you? Why are you here? What is it that, what is it you say it is you do here exactly?
Yeah, what I do here on planet Earth is, number one, I adventure. I tell people, like, this is my life's philosophy. Never before heard on the show in this way, Jeff. So you're getting the one-off super special. I am the hero of my journey. And I play it that way. And I didn't realize that as a kid. I should have known a long time ago, but I learned it later in life. I am the hero of my story. So I started off as an electrical engineer before Y2K. And as those of you that are old enough to know what that is, you couldn't get a job as a double E at that time. So I pivoted, went to construction, never looked back, absolutely loved it. Even though at times, as Nathan knows, it can be a brutal industry, not the easiest place to make a living every day. It's got its challenges. And so after that, I started getting some good training. I've had some really good mentors that made a difference in my life and set me on this path to learning. Like, number one, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. That's another good thing that I learned. Somebody probably has some experience with the problem you're facing. And it's best if you ask questions and then try what they say and use your intuition. Like, don't be dumb and do dumb stuff, right? Because I've done that too. I've done some dumb stuff. But, for the most part, you can do some safe to fail experimentation and learn and get better, that's what led me to getting my master's degree, which I used Scrum to completely get and achieve while working and traveling. I think the 2 years, 18 months that it took me to get my degree, I probably logged easily 50 to 70 flights a year while getting my master's. And I did it effortlessly using the Scrum framework, using one-piece flow without taking away from my day-to-day responsibilities at work. And with the grace of my family that allowed me to spend nights and weekends, buried in a book or on Zoom calls with my classmates on project work, which is a ton of project work. Mm-hmm. And so that, Jeff, led me to fast forward to a few years ago when I published Construction Scrum. I wanted people to know how easy it is to implement better flow in their life. Hence the subtitle of the book, Easier, Better, and Faster Project Delivery, because it doesn't have to be so hard. People. Life is too short. If you want to be the hero and adventure hard, you got to save some time for the fun, like Nathan going skiing on his birthday. A lot of people, Jeff, I don't know if you know this, Jeff, but sometimes people in the industry don't even take vacation until they're between projects because they can't afford to miss being there to shepherd that project to completion, which I think is crimes against humanity, where we don't have that allowance for ourselves to take time off and to be with those that love us and nurture us.
It's something we hear a lot about is even if they do try to take that time, they're not truly let go and they're not truly empowered to revive. So at times it's like, well, then why did you even take the PTO? Like, isn't that time off about reflection, about rejuvenation, about being free so that you can come back full? And I don't think a lot of us do that, but I'm interested in how Scrum and one piece flow, how that came about for you and how, you might describe it to somebody who's, I'd say lean curious right now or Scrum curious right now.
Yeah. So right out the gate, I can feel the audience. For the people listening, Scrum is not an acronym. It does not stand for And I don't have a made up word to get this acronym out. It actually was borrowed from some research where they found, and it was research done by Nanaka and Takeuchi. Nanaka, I always tell people, he's like the Michael Jordan of research in Japan. And they were studying companies for decades. And the research they published in the Harvard Business Review was called the new product development game. And I did not stutter, Jeff. The word new shows up twice. So if you Google it, it's the new product development game. And they found that people working in flow, very specific ways, entire organizations were aligned and moving in the same direction. And for those of you listening, think about your current project. You have a set of individuals that sometimes move together to achieve things, but a lot of the time are operating independently as if there are no deadlines or milestones or, and fill in the blank. So I think that's the magic of what Scrum does for people. It gets alignment. It makes the work super visual. Its background and basis, its foundation is lean principles, particularly the ones on my chest. For those of you watching this on YouTube, it's respect for people and continuous improvement. And for those of you listening, it's a Felipe branded shirt. And I have like more than 20 of these. So don't think I'm wearing the same shirt every day. I just have so many shirts. So that's the foundation. It makes things visual and it creates a few rules, Jeff, literally a handful of rules that allow you to get as close to one piece flow as possible. So you're doing one thing at a time at the right quality, at just the right time for the perfect handoff to the person receiving your work. So your time is not wasted. And it's fun. It's fun to be in flow.
Listen, I know Nathan wants to jump in, but I had this experience in DevOps as a DevOps engineer, and that's where I was introduced to Scrum and introduced to it. And I still can remember, the person who taught us in our first Scrum Master, and I think I'll never forget him because it was flow. It was literally an entire team working together every 2 weeks on knowing exactly what we were doing, being exactly in lockstep. And even some of our planning was done on ski resorts, skiing, yeah. And we could ski and get on a lift and focus and get so much done and be so in lockstep that flow was there. And that's where I was introduced to flow at work. I had known flow in other places. Obviously, from that state, you experience it in sport and skiing in particular, and biking and a couple others. But at work, I didn't know that could happen, and it was truly unique to. And it's got to be kind of evident when you see people hitting that state and then watch them hit their true potential.
It's incredible. It's liberating because you see a lot of people, and I work with a lot of teams, Jeff and Nathan, where they're just working way too hard for what they're getting done. And a lot of it is miscommunication, and everyone listening is like, duh, we know miscommunication is a problem like that, but all of you saying, duh, what action do you take to fix it? And the answer is you got to make it visual so that people can align, make it easy. And just a handful of rules will change your whole game. Like literally 3 steps. Like I wanted to talk about prioritizing your work so that you can live, only because people struggle with all of these competing priorities with an S. And I know, Nathan, you got to have some opinion on priorities, don't you?
Well, I mean, I want to go back to this balance of, yes, priorities. And I think the 2 priorities are right there on your chest. It's respect for people and continuous improvement is sort of, there's like this image, I think, if you Google, of like a person balancing kind of between those 2 concepts. And to me, I've always felt like that's that Stretch Armstrong of, the respect for yourself, your own time, your own priorities, the respect for others that you have to work with. And to your point of, there's so many different moving parts in this industry. And where I'm at in my lean journey is sort of this knowing doing gap of like, just because I know what I should be doing doesn't mean I'm good at doing it. And so that's maybe I'll flip to you and see how you respond to like where have you struggled, or where you maybe continue to struggle with any of those, all these different lean principles that we have to follow? Is there one because some are kind of easy and kind of come naturally, others maybe not. Is there one that's been harder for you?
I think the hardest one, that's why I put it on the top of my chest, is the respect for people, because we often, and I'm guilty of this too, I got my hand up, I will sometimes sacrifice my own health for a commitment or promise I made because I want to maintain a high level of trust with the people I work with. And there have been times where I don't get enough sleep at night because I'm up until midnight responding to something where I said, yeah, I'm going to get that to you today. At 7 a.m., I'm going to get that to you today. Seemed like no problem. I've got, 6 more, 8 more, 10 more hours. And then something happens, something changes, priorities shift. And then instead of just communicating to the person when I made that stupidly optimistic commitment, I should have asked them, like, when do you need this by? And then planned it in my work. And so if I use the framework to my advantage, I can avoid having those, either losing trust with somebody if a promise is going to potentially be broken, or being crystal clear on when they need something and giving it to them when they need it, not earlier than they need it. Because a lot of us get too much things thrown at you at once. Like you just said, there's so many principles. Like in lean construction, there are 6 lean principles, and they're actually on my shoulders too. I'm going to just show my shoulders here. I've got on my left arm, pooling value, creating flow. And on my right arm, I've got minimizing waste and optimizing the system. And I think where a lot of people get really wrapped around the axle, Nathan, is system optimization. Especially in the United States, we don't have a good foundational background. And when I say we, I'm just speaking to in general. We don't teach people systems thinking as a rule of thumb, right? And so for those of you, everyone listening, you're like, what do you mean systems thinking? Like, what does he mean by system? And I mean, a reason that we're together to achieve something. That in of itself could be a system. Your radio is a system. Your body is a system. Like my body exists, as I told Jeff in the beginning of the show, to be a hero and to have amazing adventures. So the point of my system is to have epic adventures. That's my system's point, my function. And everything out that doesn't serve that is subservient or outside of my system. I don't care. That's what I want. I want adventures and excitement and experience. And so every system has inputs, outputs, and feedback loops. And a lot of times in construction, the feedback loops are invisible. You can't see them. And so like there's pressure, there's always pressure, especially at deadlines. Where does that pressure come from? It's outside pressure from people talking on the team or just knowing what the contract says. Those things put pressure on people, and those are invisible pressures that influence and change the system. And I think as designers of projects, which some of us never get to be, a lot of us are just operators in a project and not a designer of the project or how the project comes together, unless we're on a highly collaborative project like design build, progressive design build, or the Shangri-La integrated lean project delivery like we have at the Bolt Company, or for everybody else that's not on a Bolt project, just off the shelf integrated project delivery.
Well, but we can go back because I think that's a perfect thing to stay on for a second there, because system optimization and why construction has such an issue with system optimization is I wrote down optimized for who. If we're in a broken system that does not have incentivized contracts, you are going to optimize it for yourself, but not create this system, higher level systems level thinking, right? And so half of this, where people get stuck is that, well, until you're all aligned on the same system level goal, you can't create a system that works fluidly and works well. You're going to be stuck in these ruts. And so much of it, if we have to really separate where are we just not being efficient versus where are we not incentivized to be efficient. Because those are two very, very different problems to tackle, I feel like.
And like I said, like if you're going to be a designer of the system, or if you're going to be a change maker and influence the system you're in, you've automatically taken on more responsibility. And so if we look at traditional contract methods like design, bid, build, or hard bid, that has the least amount of responsibility for the client. All they have to do is say some requirements to a design team that could either program it or create a set of documents that goes out to the street with competitive forces, and people will have to coordinate. This is the owner's favorite word to use against contractors, the C word, coordinate. Oh, you owed that in coordination. Coordination, the most cited clause. Coordination. You should have coordinated that. Should have been coordinated. It's like almost every single time something goes wrong. Well, didn't you coordinate? I could say the same about the design team. Did the mechanical engineer coordinate with the structural engineer when he put this main duct run right through the structural beam that has no penetration details? I don't think you coordinated, design partners, because they're not incentivized to either coordinate. They're incentivized when they come to deadlines to hit that print button and just spit out the documents in their current state and then let the contractors finish the coordination in the hard bid way. And so the owner, again, least amount of work there. If we go to design build, we step up, and I think you guys have some stats to share with everybody on design build at some point. You've got higher responsibility with owners having to influence the design with the contractors as we go, key contractors. And when you go all the way up to integrated project delivery, I'm getting choked up just thinking about it. The owner has to be an active contributor almost to a daily, hourly basis on that team. They are so plugged into the team and guiding what the team does that they need special training to be ready to work through that collaborative contract in ways that the other two contracts do not require.
Mm-hmm. And that's back to respect for people. And I think your definition of what you mean by respect for people, because I'm going to nod and agree with you, even if I don't agree with you, and go talk smack about you by the water coolers is not respect, right?
Right.
Telling them to their face that you disagree and possibly upsetting them is the best way to move forward. And I learned that from, shout out to Digby Christian at Sutter Medical Center, Castro Valley. I still have the shirt on right now from 14 years ago because those IPD teams, they have an impact on you. And it reminded me and wanted to wear it because, to remind us how important team and culture and collaboration and that questioning and that curiosity that obviously, Felipe, comes naturally to you, but as we know, doesn't come naturally to everyone. That can be a very, uncomfortable thing for a lot of folks. And so like getting them through that is a challenge. I'm sure in all the trainings you face that a lot. Like how have you addressed folks that are not as like-minded as maybe the three of us, and kind of get them over the fence? Because I know I've struggled with it and I get defensive and I end up losing them. There's probably was a better way to do that. I don't know. What have you learned through the years?
Yeah. So I've done a lot of research into and most of my job, Nathan, is psychology. Like, yes, I have technical skills. I've got experience running projects as both a superintendent, a project manager, and being a director. But the vast majority of what I do is psychology. Working with people, to understanding where they are, understanding what their drives and motivations are, and then being respectful of what that is, not to force my way on them, but to work with them so that we can achieve something greater together than if we went as individuals. And so the thing that I love about skeptics, and skeptics, if you're out there, I have a special place in my heart for you. I learn the most and grow the most with people that use the N-word on me. And no, Jeff, you won't have to bleep this out. It's the word no. So people that tell me no or no thank you, for the polite people, I learn so much more in engaging in dialogue with them than the people that say, yes, let's do it. Yeah, yes, let's do it. We're going to have a lot of fun together. But for the skeptics, I try to find out what is their current system like. How are they operating? I know they're suboptimal, especially if if they've only had hard bid experience. Like, it can be brutal having to work and survive that treacherous experience where you're basically treated like a thief. And everybody listening, you know what I'm talking about. You've been in the meeting where the architect or the designer, the engineer, the civil engineer, even a lighting designer, almost like they're trained in school, Nathan, to protect the owners from dangerous contractors trying to just steal every dollar and penny possible. That permeates from academia to the workforce. And we feel that in meetings. You'll hear people make these little comments and you're like, wait a minute, I'm not a thief. I haven't stolen from you yet. Right? You made this hard bid contract where I've got to change order everything that's not in the drawing. Like, yeah. I've told people, if you only have hard bid experience, you can still have a very high lean intensity even in that project delivery. But don't forget that the client wants that type of experience. And hard bid, the code word, the code phrase to be successful is see picture, build picture. Everything else is a request for income, baby. And the collaborative method, the benefits to the client, or even in the design build method, is you have faster time to market for their solution, less change orders. The costs sometimes people say the costs in these higher collaborative ways are way more expensive. When you do a total cost analysis, even just looking at first cost, you're shifting some of the costs that you will pay anyway in change orders earlier, and you're getting exponentially more value as the client, so you can get to market faster. Which, if you're a client, if you're a building capital projects owner, you don't care about construction. You care about what you do with the buildings that you have or the infrastructure that you need. Nobody wants longer construction duration except for people working on cost plus.
Well said.
Okay, Jeff's got so many ideas right now. Come on, Jeff.
Well, you hit a few things that I want to unpack, because I agree with you, obviously, on the design, bid, build world and the adversarial relationship that it has created for us. And what I wanted to unpack is there are a lot of people out there with only that experience, right? Design, bid, build. And my
it's more
experience,
than half. It's the vast majority in the United States of contracts, the vast majority.
Yeah. And I was also laughing because this is what happens when you actually give the guest the homework to do. So they read the articles ahead of time. So like he's actually giving you a foreshadowing, which is awesome.
Really teeing it up for me.
Just teeing it up. But what I have found, Felipe, that I think, you know, I now know why our careers, I think, and as people, when we sit down to talk, we follow the same road, because I'm actually not that smart in IT, and that's probably not surprising most people that listen in, but because I was never really fixing IT, it was always people, right? It was always, how do you get them comfortable with the change that's being implemented? How do you get them to articulate the problems that they're having with the system, and then to realize that, hey, look, you're really smart at IT, but they're really smart at accounting, at, you know, building things, scaffolding, whatever it might be. So we have that similar piece, but something I've noticed psychologically as I watch teams move from design, bid, build into any of the collaborative delivery methods is they bring those scars and wounds with them.
Yep.
And it goes to a quote you hear on this show all the time from DJ Phipps: communication is contractual, collaboration is cultural. And I have met with enough IPD teams and progressive design build teams to know it's not a panacea, because it's about the culture. And I'm wondering if in your process, have you learned anywhere that you can really, you know, help people move through that? Or is there any tips for people trying to move through that?
Here's a tip for anybody, regardless of your current contract type. Survey your team and just ask if it's on schedule, on budget, or perceived as a successful project. And then let them answer in such a way that they have to answer all at the same time, like you would for good brainstorming. And then react as a group to what people say. You will find out that it's all over the place. You'll find out that somebody on your team will know if it's on schedule or on budget. I've yet to find a team, Jeff, where everybody knows that answer definitively, but the team seeing together starts to align, and this is where you're going to influence the culture. Because all the magic in just asking that in a way where you brainstorm, dump it all at the same time, is you kind of unload people's perspectives, and then you can react to it in a fast reflection. Now, from that, you've now set the stage for people to speak honestly and openly. And if you're the one person on the team, you're like, we're not on schedule, you can now speak up because you've shown it. It's visually there to everybody. There's one person, we have 10-person team. One person says we're not on schedule. That's a good data point. Like that's a signal. The 9 people that said we're on schedule, that's noise. So now you can unpack that as a team, have a real conversation. Someone can say the emperor has no clothes, and now you can take actions to remediate and change what you're doing. The number one thing that you can do from those conversations is find out what's hurting people: frustration, fear, anxiety, what doubts do people have, and then you can help people avoid the pain. Pain avoidance it's like the vodka of social interactions. It's a social lubricant. You tell people like, hey, we can avoid some pain. Everybody signs up for that. Nobody I know. And construction is a painful environment in the most part, but nobody I know willingly goes to pain. especially in a team setting. Individually, it's a different story, but in the team dynamic, avoiding pain is the gateway drug to collaboration, to good collaboration. And it doesn't matter what kind of contract type you have.
No, you can do any of these in any contract type, but I always see the kind of cracks exposed as we move people from, the design bid build into those other methods. Something I'm interested in though is people go for pain avoidance, but it's something that I'm particularly focused on bringing up is like IPD. When you bring it up, everybody's like, "Oh, you want us to sit around and sing Kumbaya?" And I'm like, "No, actually, that's the exact opposite of the experience, because there is pain that has to be experienced, whether that's, kind of the pain you just talked about, or here's one that I just said this in a pre-call, is that I'm kind of tired of the industry thinking that you don't have to still have difficult conversations, that you don't have to and shouldn't be debating. Disagreeing is what we do. Debating is what we need to do. And we need teams to not hang on to their ideas like such sacred cows. You have those electrical contractors, you have those structural engineers, you have those architects, and they come in and really look at this situation like I have to win.
At the expense of somebody else.
Exactly.
Yep.
Whereas what we really need is all of the expertise of the people. And I'll give you an example of this. I had an owner complain to me recently about an electrical lighting system that, when sitting at the table with everyone around the table, it was $100,000 savings. So there was one, they were both within spec. This was an alternative. And they said, look, there's this one, or you can get this one for $100,000 less. And they went, well, of course, we're going to take the $100,000 less. And then all of a sudden, somebody on the electrical contractor got a hold of that and reached back out to the team and was like, yes, that's $100,000 savings, but it's going to cost you $150,000 in changes throughout the rest of the project. Then we need to accommodate that. And they went, okay, why didn't I have all that information? Why didn't we have the right people in the place to have that argument? Argument brings it back to where it was. So I'm interested in those, how you get teams to do that, or even if that's been some of your experiences. Cause like what Nathan said, I see a lot of people nodding their head and smiling and then going to the water cooler and being like, that's the dumbest idea.
Yeah. Stupid idea. That ain't going to work.
Yep.
Yeah, you have to, if you don't have a process for that up front, then you have no chance of that being successful. A lot of people, even on IPD projects, like you said, they come with all their baggage. So when we do kickoff meetings, I just call it out. In the beginning, I say, welcome everybody. I've left my 2 bags at the door, and they're full of all kinds of problems, from being in litigation, being yelled at, being kicked under the table. And I just tell them these are all true people. These are true. I have been in a construction meeting and gotten kicked under the table, physically kicked by a project executive, kicked my leg. And I'm gesturing to my right leg because that's the leg he was kicking.
Yep.
Because I was answering a lawyer honestly, a lawyer that was working for us in a case. This is the kind of shenanigans that we have to put up with in this industry. And I told the guy out loud in the meeting, stop kicking me, Andrew. And people looked at me like, he's kicking you? And one person was like, kick him harder. Kick him harder. He's not shutting up. I wish I could say it was the last meeting I went to, but it wasn't. Yeah. So I just tell people, like, call a spade and tell people, like, we all know that we've had this experience. And then even ask them to share a story. After they share a story of a fail, like that story you shared, Jeff, is a great story. I would tell that story and then ask someone else share one more story how that's happened. And then we go back to pain avoidance and say, okay, in order to avoid that from happening here to us, because we respect ourselves and we value our time, we need a process in place, or as they say in Canada, a process. We need a process in place so that we can deal with that conflict in a healthy way that gets the right people at the right time and that right decision. And what I like to use, Jeff, is I like to use Last Planner System or Scrum as a framework to make those decision points in design visible. So, because you could have like 1,000 A3s or problem-solving exercises where you make decision points, especially in a very complicated or complex design, or maybe just a couple dozen, right? I worked with some teams where they only had 50. It was almost a $400 million project, and through the design phase, they had less than 50 A3s total. It's not bad. And they still saved over $50 million for the client based on an IPD light process, right? So it's not that much. And that's actually a pretty big job at 400 million. Through the construction phase, it can be a little different. You do some more rapid problem solving, and your ability to turn the dials goes down the more lines on page we put with design. Mm-hmm. So I think acknowledge and share the story so that people can relate, because nobody cares about Jeff's story unless I can see myself in it. Like, did something happen to me? Did Nathan have a similar story? Like, we need Nathan to tell us his story. So get a couple at the beginning and then say, let's agree on what that process is. And if you're on a collaborative IPD process, that's going to be an A3 decision-making process that you're going to follow. But you're also going to use a limiting work in progress system like Last Planner System or Scrum, so that you can get those on some kind of schedule and just handle the things in time, at the right time, and to the right level of detail. And if you follow the IPD setup, then you're going to have those escalations happen and the research happen in such a way that it supports decision-making to further design at the right point, where you're not overloading the team with 25,000 different options. You're just dealing with a handful of options per week, and you're working through on the big systems. Like, it kind of follows gravity, Jeff. You've got gravity considerations like the structure, skin the bad boy, and then build out the interiors. Unless you're doing a manufacturing project, and that's the opposite. It's process is king. Mm-hmm. Everything inside the building is like God, and the building is just a necessary evil to close it up so that we protect God, which is the process inside the building in manufacturing. So it's the opposite of like everything else. What was that?
I'm going to interrupt him for a second. Do you remember that, Nathan, when that happened to us at Kurt? That we had that exact explanation at Kurt at a conference where the person building the manufacturing said, no. All that stuff is to keep the rain off the important things. You remember that? Like, yeah. It's those moments in time when you have the respect for perspective that
RFP, baby. Respect for perspective. You heard it here, ladies and gentlemen. Jeff Samples, RFP, respect for perspective.
Well, I want to jump in because you're absolutely right, Felipe. I think there's a misunderstanding about how many decisions owners need to make. This is where I can go to the join data that we have. And it's what we figured out. It doesn't matter if it's a $10 million project up to 150, 200, $400 million project. There's 1,000 to 2,000 decisions that an owner has to make on any given type of project. We've normalized it for all of that. Think about the gravity of that as you walk in. And what do we do currently? We either relinquish all of that to one group of masters or, like the knowledgeable ones, or we involve the right people at the right time to make the right decisions. And we agree as an organization. And I say that not lightly, an organization meaning a group of people, contractors, designers, engineers, owners reps, come together to decide how we're going to do this, and that we're going to involve the right people at the right time to make the right decision, or else we're never going to make good decisions.
Absolutely.
And I just think that we fail to understand the gravity, and we like to point the fingers in both directions. And I think, who said this to me earlier? You point the finger at somebody and there's 3 fingers pointing back at you.
At least 3.
At least 3 pointing back at you. I think I think it's an important piece for people to understand, that you're modeling the way this is going to work. Nathan, I'm taking it for a bit there, and I have to just think about it.
I think I can, because that was amazing, Felipe. I think I have maybe distilled what you said into possibly 3 steps. So I want you to clarify or expand upon, because beyond the pre-step of getting the right people in the room, as you just said, Jeff, and the right contract and whatever else, that step 1 is really psychological safety. And which was, I think, a word we haven't used yet, but it's been a big buzzword, that the jokes that you mentioned about baggage, other things like is ways that you create psychological safety. And then the step 2 is that survey you mentioned, the measuring the right behaviors and asking questions about, ironically, what are your pain points so that we can avoid them. So people don't hide their pains. You're actually asking them up front, like, no, I want to measure what your pains are so that we can go and address them. And then when everybody understands, that they can be vulnerable, be comfortable sharing pains, they have psychological safety, then we can go towards optimizing the system, everything what people want to target. But too often they want to skip those really first 3 steps if you include right people in the room and go straight to optimize. But there's so much to those first steps before you ever get to optimizing the system. So your thoughts?
Yeah, and those steps we could even analogize that a little bit and think about, a lot of people are familiar with sports. And, right now it's winter. So like football is the game happening right now. And in the game, you've got pregame, the game, and postgame. And so pregame is like that, setting the stage of the psychological safety. The game is what everybody wants to jump to right away. Like they just say, like, we know what to do and just let us get to work. Like, stop having us in these meetings so we can just get our work done. Like, let us just work, right? They want to go right to the game, but it's like, wait, whoa, you don't even know what plays you're going to call yet. Relax there, Rogers. Take a moment and talk to your team. Yeah, I'm talking to you, Green Bay.
But
so
that's a parenting question, though, right? Because like, do you let them fail to feel that failure once and know to not do that? Or do you say, well, I've failed, so I'm going to tell you what to do and not let you make that mistake? Because then they're always going to want to do it, right? I don't know. That's again, that struggle.
I always take the safe to fail experiment. Like, let them, if it's a small thing where it can be a quick learning, just let it happen. Yep. And then make the space so that they can talk about their experience, not you saying, haha, I caught you. No, ha-has, I caught you, everybody. Like I was just walking out of the office today and I said, I wanted to have this I told you so moment with a team. And I said, now in reality, I'm not going to have that. I'm going to do that in my head silently. Because out loud, it makes the wrong environment. Nobody wants to get caught in the I told you so trap. And then in the post game we can bring forward into the pregame. So we're closing the loop and telling people, like, if we don't do this, then we're going to run the risk of having our project not deliver what it should. It will be suboptimal and it's going to be lose-lose. Now, the other part that Jeff was talking about, that I got to take it my way so that I win, that comes from a fixed mindset of the pie is fixed. And on these collaborative projects, the profit possibility is much higher than people realize. If you've only ever had hard bid experience, then you know that you're chasing after pennies on the dollar. But if you're in this high collaborative environment, the work you do is different and you're bringing way more creativity to the table, and you get compensated in the marketplace for that higher creativity and higher level of execution. And I'll tell you that, talk to people that have been on these integrated projects, they don't want to go back to the old way. Like, the new way is so much more fun, so much more engaging, and so much more profitable that you don't want to go back to the old way. The old way is a fight. It's like challenging every day. It's a grind. It's all these old things that we don't want anymore, because people are starting to wake up to the fact that your time on earth is limited. You're not going to be here forever. I just tell people, like, even people that are just live and breathe by hard bid, if you give them the choice and give them options, they will choose to collaborate, because fighting every day is so tiring.
Ugh. It's exhausting, and it eventually erodes your margin anywhere you go. I'm going to have to call you out here. You got to be careful, man. You just mentioned profitability in a construction discussion, and we fail to really, in my opinion, discuss that enough and realize that all of our partners in this process, ultimately our owners, need to profit from whatever it is that we're delivering to them. I'll argue that it's actually the people that experience the built environment that truly profit from it, whether it's a drug that's coming out of a pharmaceutical facility, a road that doesn't have bumps in it, a bridge that doesn't fall on people, a healthcare and cancer facility that provides the highest level of care. Those are the people, but the profit needs to string through everyone so everybody continuously gets to do it. But we, as much as fearing having difficult conversations, we fear having the profitability conversations, but yet if this wasn't a business model, none of us would be doing it, right? We don't do this for charity. The second one is, I love your analogy from the football perspective, like how much pregame tape and how much studying and how much being ready for another team are you? And how much do we now put that into the sport that didn't go into the sport even 5 years ago now? I mean, Amazon Analytics is a part of the process now of telling people the probability of different things happening. That's showing you, exactly what you're talking about. So pregame helps you execute in the game, but postgame, we never go back, at least in my opinion, we don't go back enough and discuss what went wrong and what went well and how we can reproduce that.
That's what I want to go back to, actually.
I love that. His DevOps training, Nathan, is showing through so bright. Oh, Jeff, I love that.
Well, and you said a word, Felipe, the A3, that I think for a lot of our audience, they were like, what? What's an A3? I've never heard of that before. Let's do a quick sidebar on that, because that's a really powerful tool, I think, to help with some of the things, Jeff, you just brought up.
So before you do it, I want to say the other thing is, and this reminded me of some reading from another place in the psychology world, is this was talked about raising really good children, and you have to let them do dangerous things safely.
That's right. Oh, I got a quick story on this one, Jeff. So my
and
son
I think the same applies to project teams, right? We have to let project teams do dangerous things carefully so they can learn. So you got two sidebars there. You got that one, and then we'll get back to A3.
Wow.
My son and I are walking. We're on a walk outside, and there's this part where you can go off of the beaten path, off trail. So you're off trail, and it's these two hills, and I told my son, like, let's run these hills. He's like, whoa, Dad, we could get hurt. Like, I was like, yeah, that's why we're going to run it, to see, like, how can we run this hill and not get hurt? And so as we're walking up to the hill, we're doing our little pregame talk, and I said, we're also going to do what if scenarios. What if you fall and get hurt? What are you going to tell your mother? He's like, well, I'm just going to blame you. And I was like, perfect. I will take that responsibility. So I owned, if he gets hurt, I'm taking all the heat for this kid. At the time, he was like 10 years old. So I was like, he ain't going to die. Hopefully.
He'll bounce.
Right? And I said, you know what? Just to show you that it can be done, because if someone can see it, they can experience it. So I ran the hill first. 40-something-year-old man that does not run hills, ran the hill, did not fall, almost fell twice. And then he runs it better than I did. And he's just like, now he feels like he's Superman. He can do anything, which led to more adventures. But if we had not done that, he'd always stay on the safe path and never have the experience and the growth of taking a risk and then developing his body. Because now he's on this whole like exercise kick now that I would say goes back to those types of experiences that led him to seeing, like, I got to push myself to grow. And if I just play it safe all the time and stay in a bubble, I'm going to stay soft like a toy. And it's like, no, at the event, you got to have some safe to fail growing experiences. The A3 sidebar, Nathan. Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, I like that you framed that. I like that you framed that and you said, okay, I'll take the responsibility. You can take that back to construction. Owner, I'm going to take the responsibility. I'm going to take this, and I can go to talks with Ryan Furtag. You'll remember this, Nathan, is, I'll take more risk, and I will take that for you to go do things that you didn't think you could possibly do. I will free you up. You freed your son up from one of the biggest things holding him back was, what's mom going to say?
Right.
What is that in construction? How's the owner going to react? So you've asked the owner to lean in and play that role to allow you to try a risk, ultimately in which they can share in the reward. Or we've determined that as a project team, if we're wrong, hey, we'll share in that. So I like that you package that up nicely. Now package up that A3 just as nicely, and let's put a bow on her.
Yeah, how's that solve it?
I will let Nathan take first stab at the A3, and then I'll I'll color
Oh
it.
man, yeah. So you can critique my my best stab at it, but I believe it's 7 or 8 different steps it goes through. But what I love about it is that it forces you to give the background, to understand that current state, and to do that root cause analysis of whatever that problem or whatever that issue that arose, so that you can then recognize what that future state should be and come up with countermeasures that then come into very actionable action items that have responsible and accountable and consulted folks along the way. So it's provides this nice little kind of bow around all the different steps for innovating a problem. But it starts with admitting that there's a problem in the first place. That's been half our battle, is an industry of all these problems, admitting that we actually have problems to fix.
That's beautiful, Nathan. It is. If you go by the Toyota version of it, it's 8 steps. If you go by the Six Sigma people, the DMAIC process, DMAIC, I also believe is 8 to 11 steps. And if you go by the Lean Institute or lean.org, they say it can be as simple as boiled down to as 4 to 10 steps. So like there's some variation. And I think what Nathan was alluding to, for those of you that don't know what A3 is, in the United States, it's an 11 by 17 size sheet of paper that you use as a storyboard to engage in a social way your problem with others. Because I tell people, especially on construction projects, every problem your team has is actually everybody's problem because we're all interconnected. Mm-hmm. And so if you have a big, hairy problem that you can't solve by yourself, like if you can just quickly solve a problem, snap of a finger, just go do it. But if you have something that requires you plus someone else to give either time, resources, or cash, money, that's probably a good A3 problem. Mm-hmm. Then you can bring in, socialize it, tell your story. Like Nathan said, every story has a hero. That's the A3 champion. Every story, to remember it, has a title. Like everyone remembers the tortoise and the hare. If I just say the tortoise and the hare, you start to see the story in your mind if you know it as a child, right? So that would be the title of my A3. And my A3 could be all about how slow is fast and smooth is faster, right? That's my tortoise and the hare A3. I might have some countermeasures, like Nathan said, to close the gap because we're going too slow because of all these fast starts and overproduction. We're acting like a freaking hare. And it is, surprise, it's Year of the Rabbit, Chinese New Year. So happy Chinese New Year, everybody listening. So you don't want to be like the rabbit in the case of a construction project. You want to be slow and steady like the tortoise, because smooth is fast. Right, Jeff Gotts, you have it. And then in the follow-up, you close it down. You tell the story of the A3. The title should engage people and want to talk to you about your problem and then work with you to solve the problem. And I think it was somebody like Thomas Edison said, a problem well stated is nearly solved. And people on the internet can fix that quote for me if I misattributed it to somebody, or Jeff and Nathan, if you know who actually said that. I think it was an Edison quote.
I love it.
Yeah, it's an Edison quote, and it's. I think it dovetails, and I think it was him who said, if you have, a problem to think about, you should spend, I think it's like 99% of the time defining the problem and 1% of the time solving it. And I definitely got that one wrong, but yeah, it's the same idea. All of the thought has to go into identifying, articulating, and defining the problem. The solution will identify itself usually.
Yeah, now I'm thinking of the name. It's Kettering, who is he invented air conditioning in automobiles. He's the one that said the problem well defined is a problem almost solved. James Kettering, maybe? I don't know. Somebody Google that.
If you're listening, don't Google that while you're driving. Yeah. Please don't Google and drive.
Yeah, if you're listening, DuckDuckGo that. Google gets too much traffic.
DuckDuckGo it. Oh, we're already innovative. Well, listen, we could talk to you about this for. I'm sure we could do 2 or 3 more shows. Maybe we will in the future. We'll do another mashup of some sort.
I want one episode just on airplane productivity, because I have to imagine a lot of the reason you were so productive is because the focus time in the airplanes. At least that's me. But whatever.
You'd be surprised to know, Nathan, I do almost nothing when I fly.
What?
Almost nothing.
You and Jeff. Jeff's the same way. He watches trash TV the whole plane ride. I'm like, how do you do that?
We have I'm
sorry.
Did I out you?
You just outed him.
Yes. I turn my brain off with trash TV. And unfortunately, there are a number of people who've traveled with me who've now figured that out. But I want to know, Felipe, how you apply, and we'll do this at somewhere down the road. I want a whole nother show on how to apply Scrum to your life, because I think I'm possibly from this taking away that that's something I could do personally to get better and to improve. And for me, 2023 is about continuous improvement personally, right? Like I feel like 2022 was like just survive. And I'm hoping 23 is thrive. What's 23 for you?
23 for me is, Jeff, I'm on a mission to transform construction and create a new foundation so that we can stand all together on the shoulders of the giants that have come before us and stop reinventing the wheel. Human beings have to have those direct experiences. I'm not going to shortchange that, but I want people to stand on the shoulders of giants so that we can move faster as an industry and stop floundering and being the one industry that's actually had losses in productivity versus everyone else. And I'm not caring about productivity because the government measures it. I care about productivity because every person I know does not want their time wasted. So I don't want to waste anybody's time, and I don't want people to have their time wasted so we can have the experiences and adventures that we want. So for me, 2023 is, let's make that transformational shift. And the way that I do that, Jeff, is Construction Scrum. I'm on a path to enable more Scrum Masters in the industry. They can wrangle their projects, whether it's in design, construction, a TI, a complicated plant shutdown. I don't care what the project is. I want them to be able to instantaneously reach into their experiences and adapt the framework to suit their exact needs at exactly the right time so they can be in perfect flow like we are, Jeff, every time that we're on these shows together.
I absolutely dig it. Where can people go find Construction Scrum? Because I think you're gonna find you might have converted a few Scrum Masters out there, or at least they're Scrum curious.
If you're Scrum curious, visit constructionscrum.com. And then you can get access to all the places the book is available internationally, worldwide, thanks to Amazon distribution, making it happen even for me. And it's available on Prime too. There's softcover, hardcover, Kindle for free. If you have Kindle Unlimited, you can read the book for free. And available now, Jeff, Audible and iTunes. So you can now get the audio narration of the book where I read it in my special voice for you. And I do voices as well on the show. So you got to check that out. You can imagine me doing voices.
I will check it all out. I promise you I will. I'm sorry to our sponsors. We have to go to them right now. Following that beautiful voice, though, we're headed on in. And I'm back with Robert Scheer, VP of Strategy and Business Development for OpenSpace. There's a lot of reality capture out there, a lot of 360 products out there. What really sets OpenSpace apart?
From the start, we really focused on speed and simplicity. If you want your field teams to use stuff, it better be easy, it better be fast. And so our focus is 100% on making life easier for people to build stuff. All our advanced tech is wrapped in a really super simple experience. It just works the first time, every time. And it works at the speed of construction, which to us means getting things turned around in less than an hour, so that if you walk at 7 a.m, by 8 o'clock, you can share that with your team and you can coordinate work and kind of track issues.
Awesome. Well, so who is really the OpenSpace product focused at? Are you looking at trade contractors, general contractors, owners? Who's your real, users?
Yeah, it's really all of the above. I think we started focusing on GCs, and I'd say that's probably most of our users. But now we've got real strong adoption with trades. A lot of owners are writing it right into the spec for the project. With the GCs, it's a lot of capturing maybe every other day, once a week, to really provide that context for the team. Trades tend to use them a lot more actively. They're using them to track progress, track team productivity. And then owners, again, love to have that sort of oversight and visibility into the project. We've got 100,000 active users on the platform. We've got our users have captured over 10 billion square feet in over 70 countries. And more of our customers are moving from using OpenSpace on 1 or 2 projects to really using it across their whole project portfolio.
That's awesome. Where can they learn more about OpenSpace?
Yeah, I'd point them to 2 places. One is openspace.ai. Check it out, look around. If you want to learn more, there's request a demo buttons all over the place. Click that. The other one is we're going to be at a ton of trade shows and conferences, both sort of national ones like AU and Groundbreak, but also regional ones. So if you go to openspace.ai/events and see a calendar and, stop by and say hi.
And we're back. All right, we got to get to the news. Nathan, what do you got for me, buddy?
Oh, man. So, anything through CPC, we love to celebrate women in construction. And I was just cruising on Construction Dive. I saw there's a call for entries if you're listening to this before February 10th for construction's top women leaders in 2023. So, again, I know I'll be submitting a few names in there. And again, if there's someone that you can think of or yourself, you want to nominate yourself, do go in there and submit that. So I want to share that. But moving on to the foreshadowing, thank you, Felipe, of the second share that I have is a DBIA report that I can't believe it took me this long to come across, that they partnered with FMI 2021, 2 years ago, around, again, the design build utilization. I've get a ton of comments. We were talking earlier about how many folks get frustrated, feel like they're up against a wall with design bid build projects and don't have any way out of it. And to have data that's, saying that design build is, twice as fast as traditional projects and lots of really great stats in here that can help us prove the point that, most of us listening to this already know, but for those that are the skeptics that really need to see the data, thank you to DBIA and FMI for putting together these stats. And I know, Felipe, you were doing some homework and find some cool stats in there as well. What was some of the stuff that jumped out to you?
Yeah, one of the things that jumped out is the twice as fast. And I think a lot of people don't realize that when you take that traditional waterfall approach, you're making the time to getting your building way longer than it has to be. And when you collaborate, you can overlap different phases without causing undue burden for people. So you can have twice as fast a project. But you got to collaborate, people. Don't be afraid of that C word. Yeah, Absolutely. The other one that jumped out at me, and I got the guide up, Nathan, because it's just so beautiful. There's a growth in this area since the time that this was published, or they went back in their history, and from 2002 to now, they've had a 6x increase in design build projects. Wow. And I remember one time I was at the Napa Valley Design Build Institute, Western States, drinking a gigantic glass of wine, and they were saying that even progressive design build in the Western states, so that's west of the Rocky Mountains, people, progressive design build was skyrocketing in adoption, which is, like I said, the gateway drug to integrated project delivery. So you're just a half step away from a collaborative skin in the game project to collaborate at an extreme level. So I love that 600% growth, because it means it's setting the stage for more integration, higher collaboration, which I am a huge fan of.
I have to agree with you. And I love some of the stats that are backing this up here, because, we need these kind of things to push people forward. And 6x increase, 47% of the construction volume, which, by the way, they've released new numbers. I wish I had them. It has skyrocketed from beyond that now. But what I thought was interesting in the first one was a 77% satisfaction rate reported by owners. Think about what the satisfaction rate is of almost all the other delivery methods. And I don't know people who leave jobs stoked. And you're actually talking about people leaving a job excited, high-fiving. How many times have you all heard me say that that's the change that we need? And because we deserve that experience, right, Felipe? Like,
absolutely.
You're the hero of your own story. I'm the hero of my own story. We're all the hero of our own stories. But in the end, like, the project can win, and we can all be heroes and go to the next job excited to be heroes again and deliver again. And ultimately, you said it, it's not a zero-sum game. We actually can all win at this game and continue to play it and have fun doing it. So, and I'm with you to FMI and to DBIA for continuing to push out the research, because we can talk about it till we're blue in the face, but we need numbers to convince people, and that's okay. And we want people to see the promised land, Felipe, that is IPD, because there is a misnomer too. Hey, FMI, if you're listening or anybody there that's listening, would you please do some IPD research for us and give the crew some numbers? I'll even promise to bring you on to let you announce those numbers, because I think IPD has grown faster than we thought, under the radar. And there are a number of contractors across the country that I have found that do IPD that then turn to me and go, we never want to do a project another way. You can only get us to do it if you force us into it. And so I think there's a growth, and I just don't think we're measuring it. So that's my gauntlet for anybody listening. Thanks for the news today. And for everybody, we'll have the link in the show notes, but go out to Construction Dive right now and you can get that call for entries for construction's top women leaders. We need to recognize women. Women in this industry need to see each other in those positions so they can realize and reach the true potential, because this industry won't make it where it needs to make it if we are continuing the way we continue. This one is one that I am going to now, just like I did with FMI, I think I'm showing myself a trend here. I have one that I just want to bring these people on the show. So urbanmachine.build, if you're out there and you're listening, I want you to come on the show. I want you to talk to me because I love a good robot. And this is a robot that fulfills all the things that I want. It is a job no one does, that no one wants to do. It is reclaiming and salvaging the past to build the future. That's their mission statement. They're on a mission to reclaim the millions of tons of wood waste from construction and demolition by reclaiming it into high volume, locally sourced premium lumber products. That is right. We have a machine now, a robot. Look, I call them all robots. Technically, I think we can actually define this one as a robot. But you're gonna have to come on to help me here, because I'm gonna call you a machine until you come on and prove that you're a robot. But it actually pulls out the nails. I saw a video from a friend, pulls the nails out and cleans it up and gets it prepared to then be actually reclaimed and reused. So who doesn't love a good reclaimed wood too, Felipe? Like,
yeah,
have you ever seen the difference?
Right? I mean, I have this project. I'm in submissions with the city of Denver for ripping off the roof and the back part of the house. And I've found a contractor that's very interested in repurposing as much of the existing wood that is feasible. And so, yeah, I feel like I'm a perfect candidate. I'm going to be reaching out to him and see if we can do a case study.
Build. Yeah, we got to get you on, guys. So, Felipe, the world needs a good robot, right? It's not Atlas that everybody saw this week, jumping through and bringing somebody their bag of tools. By the way, how much does Atlas cost? Like, can we all afford a $500,000 personal assistant to bring the things I forgot? Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong, Boston Dynamics. I love y'all, but that was BS. I'm just going to call it that. Like, that's not how this is going to work. And we know Atlas is coming up with all these things. It's the reason we have Spot and all those things, but yeah, not going to happen. Not going to happen. So Felipe, how do you feel about the robots in the world?
I just got asked this question on LinkedIn like 2 days ago, probably. And I said, I'm not in awe and I'm not amazed, but cue the music to the movie WALL-E. WALL-E. And you know what happens to the humans in that drama.
Sir. I do,
and
sir.
There's a point where they start to do too much for us, and it turns us off. There's some scary stats out there. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, so I'm just going to make them up. But something like half of the jobs in existence today will be lost due to automation and robots within a decade. 10 years is not a long time. And so people, and the technologists and the futurists keep beating the drum saying, you better start being creative. You better start upskilling. You better, all these things. But that's not the way the world works. It's just going to eventually just cross a threshold. And we're going to just be hearing stories in the news for like 10 years about how automation and robots eliminated jobs. We're already starting to see it in some Amazon factories, Jeff. I've heard that there are some distribution centers that are hundreds of thousands of square feet that are being operated by less than 12 people, where it used to be hundreds of people in that space.
I've been presenting on it for a long time, and I had a little bit of fun right before COVID at Autodesk University and poked a little fun at the robots like Atlas, et cetera. but then showed a lot of what Amazon and the others are doing, the robotics and the automation. The difference that I'll argue with there, Felipe, and I'll bring you on another show at another time so we can have a deep argument on this one, is that I think people have been adapting to those changes for years. And yes, while a segment of the population always does not keep up, that's kind of part of it. And they eventually do come around. It's those that are challenged to use new ways to do things. Like, we don't code the way we used to code. We reuse lots more than we ever did before. And in fact, we're writing less fresh code than we ever were. We're doing the same thing when it comes to IT. Like, I was told, and I think I've told this story at least on one podcast, where I had a fantastic kid at the time, Michael Gerhard, tell me that, like, hey man, you better come up with a different career because you're going to be obsolete in a few years. Now, he was wrong at the timing, but more and more we need less and less people plugging in and provisioning storage and making compute power. We can just consume that from the web. So it's about changing your mindset on how do I utilize that tool as a powerful business weapon and then, you know, make my life easier. Because I'll be honest with you, if I can make the same amount of money and work a 32-hour week and go ski more, you know, yours truly is going to do that. So I'm all for it. And the robots are never going to come up with the things that we need as a society, right? But I think they'll deliver it. Although they can make us WALL-E. You're not wrong. And that's been a historical piece of this show. If you go all the way back to James Benham on stage, he would say, you all are thinking about Terminator. I'm more worried that WALL-E's probably where we're headed. So, if you've cruised the Walmart store in certain areas of our country at this point in time, I don't know that these that far off. So, but we're just not floating around in space with junk yet. So, I'm going to jump to my last one. And this was a cool one, man. I'm a big CMEX Ventures. If you guys watch and take a look, this is cmexventures.com. This is their top 50 construction technology startups report. I'm not going to go through all the startups. They've covered different ones over the years. They're really good at understanding it. But there was a couple of numbers, because I know my friends here love numbers. So get this. In 2022, the total ConTech investment was $5.38 billion, represented in 228 deals. So despite record-breaking spending and the most acquisitions ever reported for the sector in 2021, total ConTech investment in 2022 flatlined, representing a less than a 1% drop. 2021 was $5.4 billion. 2022, $5.38 billion. So this represents a very resilient performance compared to other sectors in venture capital. And I had another news article where I was going to cover what's happening with Microsoft laid off 10,000 people, but I thought this was a better perspective, is to understand that while the game is changing in venture startup and venture capital, they are still investing, still believe in construction, still believe in what we're capable in. And some focus areas: enhanced productivity was 53.1%. Future of construction was 20.6%. Green construction was 15%. Construction supply chain was 11.4%. I will tell you right now, we need to see that green go up. And I am just blown away that the supply chain number is so low, especially given we started this whole thing about 2022 and the supply chain and the pressure it created. So final thoughts on those numbers. I know there's some big ones.
I think right out the gate, we're seeing the consolidation that a lot of other industries like manufacturing, agriculture had. We're just decades behind. Actually, I think we're like almost a century behind. Mm-hmm. As the market continues to consolidate and there's going to be fewer and fewer players, every time these companies join together, you're going to see jobs shed because of duplication get eliminated. So people, if you're in a merger and you're not doing some unique, obvious value add, better polish that resume, because your chances of being eliminated are very high, especially if they merging with same type of group. So always the lesson, Jeff, is make your value delivery super transparent and visible. Yeah. Right. So those numbers, the consolidation, I think is super slower than we thought. The flat line is kind of surprising with all the pent up demand and just the amount of money people have been sitting on since the pandemic shut the economy down. I'm kind of surprised that those numbers aren't even going crazier with people sitting on such high cash reserves. I'm wondering if people are speculating that a recession is on the front with all this chatter every day in the news about a recession, even though I don't see all the indicators for it. I think there's definitely going to be another bubble on the horizon, but I'm not going to be like that IT kid and predict incorrectly. I just think that these things happen in cycles, and it's bound to happen. It's time.
Well,
but the timing, I can't say.
Yeah, I mean, the government is trying to slow the economy. There's no two ways about that. And we're trying to prevent some things from happening. But also, economic downturns are a self-fulfilling prophecy. And unfortunately, as you hear that news, you believe that news, then you act that way. And then what do we base a lot of a downturn on is consumer optimism, and it goes down because we're hearing all the bad news. So I'm with you. Construction's booming. The CHIPS Act, the Infrastructure Act, the backlogs are up. Yes, we're seeing some people be a little bit more worrisome. So another reason to get shovels in the ground and get your butts moving, because we don't stop once we're halfway through a building in this country. Unless you live in Las Vegas, that happens once in a while there. But asterisks. Outside of that, once the shovels are in the ground, we usually finish the project. So it is time for us to get moving. Nathan, any final thoughts on on that report?
Well, you did remind me that Austin actually in the 2007-8 recession, they actually stopped building high rises at that point. But I think to this point that construction will always be booming in certain markets. And as a contractor or as a trade contractor, as long as you're kind of diversifying yourself across these different markets that do well in up markets and some build in down markets, like healthcare and other industries they like to build in down economies because things are cheaper and they're always going to have cash flow coming in. And so I think, it's really just thinking smarter about it and being prepared for this, natural downturn in certain markets, but certainly not in all of them.
With that, I'm going to wrap her up, put a bow on it, and say this probably isn't the last time we do this, Felipe. And in fact, I know I'm going to send out to my construction dork brothers that we got to bring you over there for a straight throwdown. We'll call it a scrum down on the construction dorks. So y'all be ready for that one to happen. Thanks for stopping in and really taking the time to talk to us today, Felipe.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Nathan. I appreciate it.
This was fun.
Nathan,
I want one of those shirts. I want your shirt with all the different pillars. That's cool.
I love the pillars, man. Nathan, thank you for taking the time out again to be the co-host today. I'm looking forward to CDXing with you soon, man.
Oh, man, it's coming up just a couple weeks away. So it's going to be fun.
It'll be the day after this thing drops, I think. So that should be a good time. We'll be skiing before we're there because, you got to have fun before you go think. So with that, I want to thank you both for joining me today. Thank you for tuning in today to geek out for our interview with Felipe Engineer-Manriquez. To read all our news stories, learn more about apps, workflows, and hardware, and to listen to the show, visit thecontechcrew.com. This is the ConTech Crew signing out. Until next time, enjoy the ride and geek out.